Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this, the Clown Decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And if you want to keep up with all things Clown Decade, please do subscribe to the channel and of course become a channel member. Right, today we are once again going through a Vox Pop provided to us by Politics Joe. Couple of videos, but we'll go through the first one, which is asking Geordies if they trust the government. And as usual, I like to keep my finger on the pulse of the British people and their opinions, so do take it away, Geordies.
Do you trust the UK government?
Don't be silly. Well, every time they say something, it never ever happens. The lip service is there, but it just never materialises and it doesn't give you any faith in it at all.
Oh yeah, if there's one thing to blame for incredibly low turnout, it's 30 years pretty much of politicians saying one thing, delivering something completely different. Tory, Labour, it doesn't really matter. There's a big reason why the Uniparty sunk. And it's because they literally never delivered anything that they said they would. That's obviously hyperbole, but it certainly feels the things people were majorly voting for, immigration, not to be more poor, they've had the opposite.
And all the promises they made pre-election, they completely squashed them. Everything they said they wouldn't do, they did do. So how can you trust a government that does that?
Good question, and I think that's going to be the main theme throughout this Vox Pop.
People make so many false promises and don't keep up with it.
Not at all, no. I'm a pensioner and they've done some nasty things to pensioners over the last few months.
Don't know about that one, you got your winter fuel allowance. But then again, this was one of the things that wasn't in the manifesto and is being delivered anyway, mainly because the civil service want it, because they're running out of money. It is just incredible. The United Kingdom at the moment, its economy is effectively worse than a socialist state. We've had more public spending than ever, blah, blah, blah. The problem is that the size of the pie has been fixed for some time now because there's just no growth anywhere in the economy. And therefore, as a result of that, you've ended up with everyone's special interest effectively being, oh no, don't take money away from me. But then everyone else saying, but I want more money. And so everyone's fighting effectively over the same slice of pie while there's unlimited money for hotels for migrants. It's a crazy situation that Labour have no answer for.
He didn't promise anything and he hasn't delivered anything, so...
Well, they promised a lot, to be fair to them, but what they have delivered has been the worst part of what they promised. But this is the thing, people have 2 or 3 very major things they have their mind on, and if Labour aren't doing anything about it, then they've not delivered anything.
Why would I trust him?
No, I don't like Labour. I don't trust Starmer at all. He's a villain. I don't like him. In fact, it's very difficult to trust any government now. You know, I don't know who to vote for.
Just vote reform, man. What's the worst that could happen? But it's kind of nuts to me. This is the most universally hated government that I've ever seen in my life. And I just don't see the same vindictiveness there was against people like Boris Johnson, Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak. For some reason, when it's the Tories, they get way worse spite and bile. When it's Labour, it's just, yeah, I don't like him and don't trust him. When it's the Tories, it's basically hang them.
You know, it's very, very difficult. We vote independent. Now, you're an independent lad. He's a good lad where we live. But the rest I don't trust now, I don't trust them.
Fair enough, at least he's got some political representation. I feel really bad for left-wingers. Despite having 5 parties that they have a choice of, Lib Dems, Green, etc, etc, they still feel politically homeless. I think everyone, the general public I mean's understanding of politics is far from how politics should really be working. In that the public will largely need a bit of compromise, and I think this is part of the reason that realistically, when you look at the right wing, it is basically just reform, with everyone else trying to ankle-bite Farage and reform over kind of nothing issues. Restore's lot do it because, oh, he's not based enough on immigration. Oh, he said mass deportations now. They don't care, because ultimately it's a bunch of low fanboys. Look over to Advance. You dig down to it, all this comes from is effectively Ben Habib having a massive go about Northern Ireland, and I mean, believe it or not, a party predominantly in Wales, England and Scotland don't really have an awful lot to say on it beyond get Brexit done and sort it. We'll deal with that later down the line. So Ben Habib drops off and makes a whole new party for it. But there's no compromise here. There's no willingness really to work together from quite a few people. All over a minute detail on some policy maybe, and if it's not that, it's personal. Whereas with the left it seems to be, if you're not 100% on board with all my politics and the priorities of them, I have to move between your party and the Greens. It doesn't make sense.
At the moment, no.
This government? No.
How come? I just think, I don't know, it's a yes or no. Like, it's going to take a while, isn't it, for roll things in. It's going to take a while for them actually to be implemented and for things to change, but at the moment, not the best.
I mean, I'd say at the very least this is a man who's willing to be patient, but ultimately we're a year in, and with a few eggs having been cracked, you'd at least expect to see the omelette cooking, but we're not even getting that.
No, not really. What isn't due to dishonesty tends to be, I think, due to sheer incompetence. More incompetence than dishonesty, but lack of action about something that's the right thing to do. So there's a lack of integrity just to get moral support for votes. Business with making migration an issue by the Labour government purely because the far right's pushing it.
This will be a man who is going green because he thinks Labour are trying to chase Farage's votes, which they have a bit, but it's quite clear since the whole Island of Strangers speech, which actually is one of Starmer's best speeches that he obviously rolled back on. It's just lost people to the left of the party, which it always was going to do, and now you've got 5 different parties now trying to get all those people. Your party, Greens, even Lib Dems to some degree. But, I mean, I've said it on Twitter, but realistically, where the political arguments are these days is, do you blame migrants because you're poor, or do you blame rich people because you're poor? The answer is that it's rich people because they push for more migration for cheaper wages. Obviously, that means it's not all rich people, however, certainly those with multinational interests. It's all a lot more complicated than either side can really get down to, but fixing the migration issue is clearly the easier one here, and then you just basically need more of a free market. It's what I've been saying for years. And if something can't be a free market for whatever reason, whatever's in the national interest, whatever protects British people's rights and resources.
I'm just waiting for this budget to see how it affects everybody, to be fair.
Oh, it is going to suck. Nobody is looking forward to this, and in fact I wouldn't be shocked if people are bracing effectively to have another year of effective recession. It's so funny, everyone's acting like we're in recession, and yet none of the statistics actually say we are, and that's all SW1 really care about. It's absolutely wild. Everyone knows the country's stagnant, everyone knows we're getting poorer. Frankly, the smarter ones are the people who are running away to Australia or Canada or something like that, and, well, for some reason the rest of us who can't really move, or don't want to, are unable to get a government that's able to fix any of this. Maybe we'll get it in 2029.
People were sick of 14 years of Conservative government and just thought, actually, we need something else. Starmer came in, he didn't offer much, but he offered something different. So I think that's why they got a lot of the vote. I think the landslide narrative, it wasn't true. If you are around the country, you know that wasn't true. That people were like, whoa, yeah, Starmer.
It's kind of half right. Starmer was certainly an alternative, but nobody really cared what the messaging was. All you had in debates was people saying, yeah, Labour will raise your tax, and they're idiots. And Labour just saying, yeah, but at least we're not the Tories. And they won off that because nobody turned out to vote. It was quite a low turnout. Not the lowest we've had for a century, second lowest, but it was a low turnout. And he is right. The landslide, they do have it in Parliament in terms of number of seats, but obviously, as everyone who pays attention to politics knows, that's on about 30-odd% of the vote. It's a very broad but thin majority, and this is why, well, that's why I predicted an early election, and it's why talk of an early election keeps being brought up elsewhere. Because ultimately, why would these MPs bother sticking with Labour if being Labour is going to tarnish your chances to actually get a seat again? Honestly, you'll probably see a few of them defect, much like how Danny Kruger defected to Reform. Defect to who, you might ask? Well, the Greens seem to be doing quite well, don't they? Oh, I mean, look at the Lib Dems as well. They've got 70-odd seats, and they look like they could be in opposition next election. Who knows?
He's only got himself to blame. This digital ID thing's messed up. The way he's gone on. Do you know anyone that likes him?
Yes, I do agree that the digital ID thing sucks. And I do like at the end where he just looks straight down the barrel of the camera and asks the audience, do you know anyone that likes him? No, actually, I don't. I don't know anyone that likes him. If they're left-wing, it's because they think he's too right-wing. If they're right-wing, it's because they think he's too left-wing. If they're centrist, then they've just got the ick. That seems to be it.
I find it very hard to trust any of the politicians, really, to be honest. Probably vote the Greens or Liberal Democrats, or if it was a local election, they just want the independents, simply because of damage reputation.
I am begging you, please vote Lib Dems rather than Greens. Greens will actually ruin the country. Lib Dems will just be more of the same. We can deal with more of the same, believe it or not. When it comes to the Greens, I don't know. Maybe we do need accelerationism. There's an argument there, possibly, but please, I don't want to risk it.
I don't think we'll have a voice up here because people, not just Newcastle, but people in the North East, we don't have a lot of money. We've never had a lot of money. And yet we don't seem to be, I don't know if I should listen to it, but I don't seem to be taken seriously. All the big things seem to be happening in the South.
Yeah, again, this is another issue people have when it comes to what's actually going on. The reason the South has a lot of money is because it's where the financial hubs are. Now, the financial hubs were the only way you could actually make money in Britain, especially post-Tony Blair. Thatcher obviously gets all the blame for deindustrialisation. It wasn't Thatcher, it was Blair. And so in a post-industrial world, I mean, obviously I want to go to a industrial world once again. It seems to be a very good use for national security at the very least. Everyone knows these old mining, industrial towns, whatever, they all fell to the wayside and, yeah, don't have much money. But the mindset seems to be, oh, that was planned from central government. No, it was an inevitable, don't get me wrong, an inevitable outcome of deindustrialisation. And Maggie Thatcher had a bit of the kind of canary in the coal mine for that. I mean, you know, coal mines shutting down and all that. Yeah, it did ruin a few towns. Problem with Blair is that he then put that on roids. But obviously Thatcher gets all the blame for that because mainstream media narratives, effectively. And it would be good to go back for that, but you're not going to get that if you vote for the Greens, are you? Because they don't want to reindustrialise. You're not going to get that if you vote Lib Dems either, because nobody knows what their policy is. Oddly enough, the best people to vote for is Reform, but everyone thinks they're racist.
I don't think they live in the real world. They're so detached. I think they're untouchable, and, you know, there's all these expense scandals and various other things. And yes, they are human beings and they're the same as us, but at the end of the day, they have no concept of real life and the working people.
Oh, I mean, that's obviously true. It's almost a thought-terminating cliche at this point. And, you know, a good question is, well, why does that happen? Well, to be an MP, it takes a lot of work to even get selected before you're even elected. And it's just simply not what normal people do. You have to move around quite a bit if you want to, you know, go in unsafe seats first. You know, you need to rent out a house somewhere in Wales if you want to stand there. You'll drive hours upon hours to go to campaigns and things like that because your social life doesn't really exist, etc. You'll all be doing this while you have a job as well, preferably one that's remote and quite easy. Though most of the time, to be honest with you, you will be working for the party, so you don't really get a background in real life. And then there's the people who come straight from think tanks and Goldman Sachs. That doesn't help either, because they're not real jobs either. I worked in Goldman Sachs for 3 weeks, that was enough for me. So yeah, it's kind of no wonder that MPs, to be one already, to want to be one already, you need to be a bit of a weirdo. Well, I have that. But then to actually get to be an MP in the end, it takes a really weird step in life for you. And yeah, that's one that's inevitably going to make you a bit odd and not, frankly, not able to empathise with normal people easily, I guess we'll put it that way.
The Conservatives are all sort of privately educated, upper-class twits, and you've got no other options, really. Oh,
you're way behind. No, there's other options now. We're in five-party politics. I don't really buy that. We're in one-party politics, which is Reform, and you've got like 4 behind it that are trying to work out which one's the best to be the opposition party. But the, I guess you'll call it reverse class snobbishness comes out. There's an awful lot of people that effectively dunk on the Tory to show credentials of, I don't like upper-class people, and I always find snobbishness like that a bit pathetic. From both directions, obviously. I don't particularly like upper-class people that look down on working-class people, though I don't know how often that actually happens.
How about the Green Party? How do you feel about them?
Well, it's all very well having ideas and opinions like they do, but they're never going to get into government, are they? So why stand there spouting about it? Go and do something different.
That is an opinion I do have for some parties that are extremely small, but, you know, they've got, is it 4 or 5 MPs now? I can't remember. And in some polls, they're even joint third with Labour. They're usually 4th or 5th, sometimes 6th, but usually 4th or 5th. We're in a chaotic time, anyone can win, so this whole, oh, it's only between the Uniparty, doesn't really work now, does it? I mean, to say that Tories are your only other choice, sorry, no, they're consistently 3rd or 4th now. You actually have 2 other choices above them, which is Lib Dems or Reform. Yeah, I don't think you'd ever vote Reform, otherwise you would have brought them up.
The trade unions had it maybe 40, 50 years ago, but even then you look at the people who were the power in who sort of brought all that to the fore, and it was people like Tony Benn in the 70s and the 80s, and he was like an aristocrat. I mean, his heart was in the right place, but he wasn't like genuinely of and for the... Well, he was for the working class people, but he wasn't of the working class people.
I mean, why does that matter to you exactly? I wonder if this guy buys the whole toolmaker thing from Keir Starmer. I doubt he does, but, well, we'll see what he says.
How can we get into politics? I tried to get into politics when I finished uni. You can't. It's impossible unless you're down London.
Oh yeah, that's pretty much true. The only way to get into politics is to consistently go to London. This is true of reform as well, by the way. To get any sort of job in policy or what have you, you have to regularly go to London. This was a mistake on my part for moving to Wales.
We used to have a voice. It was called the Labour Party. We don't have that voice anymore.
Voice of what, though? Because I think he's going to say working people, and I would put forward that Labour were never really for the working people. At a push, maybe under Attlee, but then again, he sold... Well, he didn't even sell it. He just gave our jet engine secrets away to the Soviets and put basically no investment into rebuilding and instead put it all into the NHS. Problem is, you say that to the average person, they think, wow, that's the best thing ever. I love our NHS. Even though everyone knows it just doesn't work.
There's always a trend in politics, and it goes back to Tony Blair and people even further back than that. And that is, to get into government, the Labour Party struggles because the population in general don't really like the working class.
No, it's because every time they got in, they managed to make the country worse off in general. They never really helped the working class. They closed more coal mines than Thatcher. So even by your own definitions, they're not particularly good. Sorry, it's just the truth. Labour have always been terrible. Tories were good for about 10, 15 years maybe. Aside from that, 20th century politics has actually been dire. It's going to be really interesting to see how historians write about the last 100 years, because I can't imagine it's going to be good.
And they don't like unions, etc.
Well, my God, you know, the 70s... give a pretty good case study as to why you shouldn't like the unions. They brought the country to their knees once, and they're doing it again now. It's no wonder people don't like unions.
So they tend to oppose voting for them. As soon as the Labour Party changes tack and decides to be more slightly conservative in their outlook, a lot of the population can latch onto that, because the Conservative Party have a history of not despising the working class.
Sorry, but there's a reason that Essex Man still exists to this day in Tom Skinner. These were working class people that effectively worked their way up to middle and even in some cases upper class, if you want to use the class structure. Now, I'm not making this video to argue you're completely wrong. Obviously, a lot of people are in a worse position than they were 10 years ago. I'm completely with you for that. That's part of the reason I want the Tory party to die. But if we're to look at history, Labour's never been the answer to that, and we have Labour in now, and wouldn't you know it, they're not the answer again. And if you think that's because they're not supporting the unions enough, all I need to do is point out to you that they've given them the highest pay raise ever for most of the public sector. So, no, actually, it's the other way round. We've been too pro-union for too long, and that includes the Tories.
So Tony Blair did it, and our President, Mr Starmer, has done exactly the same thing. He says what he's going to do, he changes his mind, and his politics become slightly tinged with conservatism.
Well, to be fair to Tony Blair, from what I understand, his first term he largely kept to what he said he was going to do, which is keep most of Thatcherism. And it was largely his second term and beyond where he actually tried to change things for the worst. I mean, really, Tony Blair's biggest problems were his constitutional reforms. On the economy, he was largely good till the 2008 financial crisis, at least according to the numbers on the paper, but then it turns out that's all based on debt. And so the Tories' answer to that was try and get the deficit down and base it all on debt. And now we have more than 100% GDP based on debt, which we've only managed to do in history when at war, except we're not at war and nothing works.
We've never trusted the government up here. I don't think we ever will. Doesn't matter who's in power, they're all a joke. And don't get started on Nigel either.
Irony being is that certainly out of the big five parties, Reform's definitely the one that's going to help the North East the most. There's no question about that. Because the other four parties have basically all wanted the same thing, just at different speeds. Farage and Reform wanted basically the opposite.
Labour aren't in the best of situations at the moment as well, because the pressure that Reform give them as well. And I think just using a populist movement as well, Reform. It's unfair on everyone else, and unfair on Labour especially.
I think his argument there is that Labour are making the best out of a bad political situation that they can, and he's blaming Reform putting pressure on them via the only way they can, which is by taking votes off them, i.e. offering them anyway an alternative and something that they would prefer to Labour, and that's apparently unfair to Labour. Yeah, the world of politics is unfair. What's your point?
You mentioned reform before. How do you feel about reform?
I think the idiot spreads hate and then tries to mask it. It's like a wolf in sheepskin.
This is the problem that you're going to run into with reform an awful lot. People will just bleat this stuff and literally just not think beyond, oh, reform, bad, they spread hate, don't you know, blah, blah, blah. Tedious to talk about, honestly.
And it's he tries to scapegoat immigrants as well, and they're not the problem at all. He is.
Yeah, again, just more platitudes, thought-terminating cliches, blah, blah, blah. You get my problem with this.
Impoverished areas as well, like up here as well. People vote for for reform as well, because he uses immigrants as like, that's the problem, that's why it's all poo, and it's just not. It's just previous governments like the Tories.
We brought in like 2 million immigrants over the past 5 years, blah, 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 you know the argument. But if this guy paid attention to politics, he'd know that an awful lot of what reform say is that, yes, Tories were terrible and we need a completely different direction.
The way you can wind up the younger men like in the country, I just think he's smarter than he leads on, because he gives like quite a like nonchalant, jokey persona, but he definitely knows what he's doing.
Well, yeah, he's been basically a professional troll for 25 years, and of course he knows what he's doing. He's got a team together, they're getting policy out. In the meantime, he's campaigning as he usually does, having the entire establishment against him, and all it's doing is making everyone know it's Farage versus everyone else. That's the point of reform. We want to be with Farage because everyone else has ruined the country.
I tell you who will cause major damage at the next election, and that'll be Mr Farage.
Because people are so disillusioned now with so much that's happening in the political world, I think people will go for Farage, and I think they're going to be disappointed just the same, because they all seem to have this money tree that never seem to materialise, and it always seems to be the people who've got it get more, and the people like us, for example, like pensioners, get more and more taken away from them, and for all the years you've worked, and it just dwindles everything you've got. And
sorry, I do hate to go classic Zoomer, but it is true that the pensioners do tend to get the most out of the welfare bill, because your public pensions are part of the welfare bill. The problem you have is that a lot of pensioners were basically told, pay your national insurance, that goes towards your pension. I have this with my mum and dad all the time. They should know better than this, but it is true that when you've paid into national insurance all your life, you're expecting a pension at the end because you did that instead of a private one, or in parallel with one, I should say, for most people. However, young people at the moment know they're not getting a pension at the end of it, despite any promise you might get. And on top of that, you have to opt out of getting a private pension, which I'm absolutely fine with, by the way. That does make sense, but the reason for that is to slowly move away from the triple lock pension. And frankly, if there's anything we should do, it is actually means test pensions and means test the winter fuel allowance, because then people who literally only rely on it, fine, they still get it, that's fair enough, you know, odds are they paid into the system all their lives. Otherwise, you're a millionaire, you can work it out. That's the whole point of the welfare system.
The worry, of course, is if all the parties are not looked on very favourably, nobody votes, and that is catastrophic, because the parties that you don't like, one of them's going to get in, so they have to back somebody, really. And it's a tough decision now. Tough decision.
It's quite funny because every boomer seems to have this mindset, and they are the ones that vote the most. But you get to the younger generations, and they all just kind of try and be edgy and say, oh well, they all do the same thing anyway, there's no point in voting. And then, you know, they're kind of shocked that the Tories get in for 14 years and everything sucks. I mean, this is why it's quite a funny thing that we keep getting these this polling data out about 16 to 17-year-olds voting reform. It doesn't really matter. 20% of them will vote. It won't make too much of a difference, especially when compared to the boomers, who, thank God, are also mostly going to be voting reform.
Farage, I don't hate him as much. I mean, a lot of people don't trust him. A lot of people think he's racist. I'm not sure, I'm not sure. He's got some good ideas. I mean, to be fair, we've got to try and stop so many people coming over.
You tried your best, man, but I thought Politics Joe are still going to probably refer to you as a racist man. But I'm completely with you. Stopping immigration, especially illegal immigration, perfectly reasonable, especially at this point in time. This man is probably going to be voting reform, but doesn't want to say that on camera in case, people he knows sees.
But we need the doctors, nurses, surgeons, you know, they've got the cleaners. You've got good people coming abroad who work very hard for this country, who pay their tax.
Yeah, if the Dork right are ever wondering about why reform and never stop immigration completely, this is why, because a lot of people buy into the whole, an awful lot of people are coming over to work for the NHS and actually pay into the system. How true or not that is, it doesn't matter. To be honest with you, people don't even realise there's nearly 1 million people coming over a year. Well, it's not quite that large anymore, it's close to 300,000 odd. But your average person thinks that legal migration is like tens of thousands a year, something like that, and it's, it's the tens of thousands coming over illegally that's the problem. No, illegals make up quite a small percentage of total immigration into the country, and a lot of people still don't seem to understand that, and that's been part of Reform's push to say, hey, we've got the Boris wave, thank you Online Right for that. It was actually millions coming over the years, and they are soon completely able to get benefits, despite only being here for 5 years. It's crazy.
Would you ever vote for them again?
No, never again.
No.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. Why would you vote for Labour when you got basically nothing you voted for? I get it. I'm the same with the Tories.
Yeah, I do vote for Labour. I think nowadays it's sort of voting for lesser of two evils. Go for Labour. I'm not gonna go Tories.
My brother's a bit like this. I'm still trying to work out why they think this government is better than what the Tories will have been. By every metric, they are worse. Every metric, apart from immigration, obviously. But Boris Johnson was a bit of a wild card for that one.
I never have, so I never will. No, and I certainly wouldn't vote for Nigel Farage either.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with the Geordies. They seem really not to like Nigel Farage. I can only really put it down to, once again, class differences. Nigel Farage, he's this upper-class twit. I don't want that because I'm a Geordie, don't you know? Working-class lad and all that, which... that's their opinion, fair enough. I can't force them to vote any differently, but I hope they get a bit more open-minded. Anyway, that was the main video, but I also noticed another one that I want to quickly go through, and this is asking Londoners if they think the Tory party is dead.
Is the Tory party dead?
They are barely surviving, but I wouldn't say dead yet.
Yeah, I'm basically at that point. I don't see how they do survive. Literally any path they go down is terrible. Keep Kenny Badenoch on, dead. Replace it with Robert Jenrick, can't see that happening anyway, dead. He just does not have the charisma or pull to bring people back from what I can see. Plus, if it becomes an immigration issue, he's screwed. He was immigration issue during some of the worst times to be immigration minister. And if it's not either of them, it's James Cleverly. He's definitely not good. He's just continuity Boris.
I think they're kind of winding down, yeah. For now, but they'll come back.
Much more with the first guy than the second guy. I obviously Tory rebuttal, who's no doubt going to watch this. Yeah, I just don't understand why anyone would think the Tories have a chance apart from historical precedent. The problem is that you're in very unprecedented times, so you can't really bank on anything. Certainly not the Tories coming back.
Why do you think?
Because they always have. They're the oldest political party in the world, one of the most successful in the world as well. They are the best at changing their stripes. They will change their stripes at some point and come back.
Maybe decades down the line, possibly, but, well, I'm afraid to say a lot of the machine is gone. When they've changed their stripes in the past, they still have an awful lot of the political machine. Campaigning, offices, what have you. They might not even be able to afford their northern office anymore. And rent on the London office, God knows where that's going to go as well.
At my age, I've seen this happen quite a few times, a party suddenly come to the fore, and mid-election, between elections, they do very, very well. But what happens when you actually get closer to a general election? People, voters start getting scared and worried, and they tend to go back to what they know. And also, you then get the media really exposing the new party, any flaws in their thinking or their policies.
All could happen, there's no doubt about that, but I still can't see this as anything other than coping and seething. I just don't see how even in 2029 people buy that, yeah, they had 14 years of chances, we gave them every opportunity to change their stripes before. Why would they trust them now? Especially either under Kemi Bay, especially when most of the front bench is still people who put us into this mess. Labour made it worse, no doubt, but Tories was just a slow motion car crash.
Why do you think not?
Because I don't think everyone is far right. So there is people that are between far right and Labour, and I think this is where it will be skewed by Conservatives.
Yes, but I think we're at a point in time where centrist politics is pretty much dead. Again, we had 20 odd years of it. It's ended up with a royal mess. If there's any point in time people are going to be taking a risk, it's when they feel like they have less to lose, and I don't think Labour's going to put them in a position where they feel like they have much to lose.
And why do you think they're dead now?
Look how many people turn up to their conference. It's like, you know, you have members of the front bench making speeches in the main hall, and there are rows and rows of empty seats, and their electoral performance, not just in the last general election but in subsequent local elections, has been absolutely abysmal.
2% in carefully, by the way. That's losing deposit territory, and if that carries on in Wales, there won't be any Welsh Tories. Same might happen in Scotland. Same's going to happen in a lot of places across England as well. It's just not going to go well for them.
Kemi has no idea. She's very, very bland, very boring. No, you talk to a voter, no one even know who she is, let alone what she stands for.
Yeah, it feels like the Tory strategy was just let Reform say things and they'll make mistakes, and then it turns out, you know, even when they come out saying, 30 billion in savings just from PIP, and you've got Fraser Nelson coming out saying that's probably not actually going to be the case, though. Nobody really cares. They just hear something different and a big number and they think, yes, please, we're spending too much.
I feel like for our generation, yes. I know that for other generations it may be different, but I think with the way that the world is going now, I think, yeah, potentially.
Oh, it's not even close. They're getting like 10% of young men, and that's maybe it. Dead for the girls. And then you've still got the gender divide between boys and girls. Girls tend to go more for Greens, boys tend to go more for Reform. To me, that says in 10 years' time, you're going to have a completely different political landscape coming up. And honestly, potentially a worse one with the Greens are there.
At the moment, everyone's treating it like sort of a good, fun thing. No, it's not important at the moment because, you know, whether Reform are on course to take everything at the next election or nothing, it does not matter. What really matters is election day, and it all ramps up just before that, and that is when you will see probably a big change.
A lot of hope being thrown on there, but honestly, sorry, but when it comes to council elections, they still matter. When it comes to the devolved parliament, those elections still matter. And ultimately, if Reform, they don't even necessarily have to do a great job, they just have to do a better job than, well, how people are feeling. And, you know, they're absolutely right, Zia and Lee, I mean, because whenever the council's issues comes up, they always make the point of, well, council, I've never known councils to get this much scrutiny before, so it's good to see that we're getting that. But then ultimately, what you're complaining about, there's a bit of internal biting. Of course there is. They got 600 odd councillors. It was even said yesterday on the stream over on the Worcester Club, like, it's kind of surprising that it's only really happened in Kent. And then obviously you've got Cornwall Council, where 5 people decided to resign from Reform because, believe it or not, Reform, a national party, had national interest rather than Cornwall interest. But what do you expect from the Cornish? But to try and put all your money on, but it'll all go back to normal next election. Sorry, we're past that. We know that's not happening now. It could go back to it, but you would have to see a trend toward that before it happens. You're not just going to have a cliff edge of Reform votes all going to Tories. Most people are voting Reform because they hate the Tories.
Do you feel that that's been a shift in your lifetime, or is it just something that, you know, because politics is becoming so unfavourable, do you think like people just don't really know too much about that sort of thing?
I do feel like it has been a little bit of a shift in my lifetime. I think the kind of like how people view the world has changed a lot, especially in the past few years and especially since COVID.
Maybe, I don't know. People all seem to have forgotten COVID happened. It's brought up as a joke more than anything, which is actually quite sad, because especially if you're in your 20s, it kind of ruined your social life. Ruined mine, certainly. And I know a lot of other people who had their social life brought to a halt because of it. And then it kind of just went back to normal. But I didn't really see political arguments change. Everyone just found a new reason to hate the Tories, despite the fact that Labour wanted lockdowns and worse. But, everyone now pretends that they weren't pro-lockdown. Actually, locking down was silly. That seems to be the prevailing view now. But, I mean, even when I was younger, I mean, I suppose I went through university when Corbyn Mania was going on. everyone really was thinking of voting Corbyn, if anyone. And well, these days, people are just more open to the Greens. That seems to be the main difference, but ultimately that's still going after the same politics, so I'm not sure if I've seen a shift, but maybe it's different for the younger generation.
But equally, I do think people of my generation now just don't know as much. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like people don't know as much about politics as they used to. I feel like I'm really not clued up on it, and I know a lot of my friends aren't, so I don't know if that's just kind of a thing a little bit as well now.
Oh no, don't worry, that's not just you. Nobody knows anything about politics. You find that out quite quickly as you read into all this stuff. Don't feel bad about that. A lot of politicians know this too and try and take advantage of it. So, you know, if you're interested, look into it. But, well, aside from that, she seems to have good instincts as to what is actually going on at the moment.
I think the thing about a lot of Conservative support is that it's silent. They're not prone to big demonstrations and big noise and stuff. And so it's kind of an unknown known, if you know what I mean. That doesn't make sense. But what I mean is, as Laurie says, that come election time, that's when it matters, and you don't really hear from them in between those moments. So yeah.
I'm sorry, but the silent Tory vote was only really a thing that happened for the 2015 election. They were all largely in line with what polling was, aside from that one election. Again, this just sounds like a couple of Tories that are effectively trying to cope their way into things will be fine. But no, sorry, your social club's dying, and it will just be a social club after this.
We're going to give you 30 seconds. And we're going to see how many Tory politicians you could name in 30 seconds.
That's it. Boris Johnson?
This is sad, isn't it?
Oh, this
is not good.
Can't.
Streeting? No, he's Labour, isn't he?
Where's Streeting? Yeah. This is embarrassing.
This is embarrassing. We do live here.
I can't. You've put me on the spot.
Just for clarity, I did supercut that. There were some people named, especially by the young lad. But the general consensus there is you either name no one or you can name about 3 or 4, and then you end up naming Labour politicians by accident. Nobody cares, really. Even the people that are on the Tory side, they just don't care, and they're falling back to remember 2015. Yeah, that ain't happening again, I'm afraid. So I think with that will do it for the Vox Pop. Right, like the video, subscribe, leave a comment. On top of that, do become a channel member, leave super chats and super thanks as well. In terms of what's coming up on the channel, Wolves of Westminster will be out Friday evening. Laughing at the Guardian will be Saturday evening, and then we will have Tosh News, on Tuesday. And I need to find out what game I'm playing as well next Wednesday. Right, with that, videos out as and when I can make them. Thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.